Hey friends, welcome to Gardening with Creekside. Today we are going to do a fun little kind of type of garden tour, but hopefully this is going to be inspiration for you in your garden. We are going to be focusing on evergreen trees that you can add to your garden. Now, little disclosure, because you know Jenny's all about full disclosure. This is probably not the time that I would recommend if you are a southern gardener for you to actually add these to your garden. This is going to be an inspiration, a little bit of a research project. So this fall, when you are ready to plant maybe an evergreen tree in your garden, you will know which one might be a good fit for you, because of course our evergreen trees come in all shapes and sizes. We use them for all sorts of various different reasons. We're going to talk about that today because we have quite a few evergreen trees here on our property, and really we have planted them for all kind of different reasons, right? Maybe it's a specimen plant, maybe it's for privacy, maybe it is for winter interest. Lots of different reasons why we would plant an evergreen tree, but like I said, here in the South in July, probably not the optimal time for you to be planting these. I want to share these with you right now so that you can begin thinking. If you want to add an evergreen tree to your garden, which one is the best fit for you? Then once you decide what the best fit for you is, contact your local garden center. See if they, one, are able to get the plant. Do they have it in stock? Would they be able to get it in stock for you this fall when it comes time to planting? What size do you want? Do you want a 1 gallon that's small? Do you want a 15 gallon? That's going to be a bigger plant, but that's also going to be a bigger hole to dig. Lots of things to consider. And so you have time to do your research, do your due diligence, figure out what's best for you. How are you going to find it, right? You've got to locate the plant, because that's the thing. Be the best plant in the world, but you've got to be able to find it. And then are you going to install it, or are you going to hire somebody to come install it for you? So this is why we're doing this in July, so that you can get some ideas. Also in July here in the South, it is hot and humid. I want to show you what these trees look like when they are more at their quote stressed time. Typically your evergreens will be more cold hardy than heat tolerant, right? That's why we deal with here in the South where I am. I would love to have more types of conifers, but we're a little bit limited because of the heat and the humidity in the summertime. Some of those beautiful, especially the blues and the chartreuse greens conifers, just don't work here in the South because of our heat and humidity. However, that doesn't mean that you can't have a gorgeous evergreen tree in your landscape. So we're going to pop around the property. I'm going to highlight these, give you the specs on all of them. So if you find something that you like, grab your garden journal, make a note on your phone. That's what I do. I have a folder on my phone in the Notes app, and I just put down plants because I always have my phone with me, and so that's really easy for me to add to it. Of course, we are here at the berm at the house, and the first one that we are going to highlight is going to be Stellar Ruby. Stellar Ruby is actually a magnolia. We have talked about her several times before, and it is just a fantastic plant. Stellar Ruby is from our friends at the Southern Living Plant Collection, and this is going to be a full sun to a part shade tree. This is going to be a smaller tree. You could also use it as a large shrub, depends on just how you kind of want to prune it. I'm going a little bit more for the shrub, you know, shape to it than per se a tree. It's all going to depend on how you prune it. Now, Stellar Ruby is hardy in zones 7 to 9, and at maturity she is going to be 10 to 15 feet tall and 6 to 8 feet wide. Stellar Ruby is so fun because it is not that typical magnolia that you may think of, you know, of here in the South. The leaves are quite different. They are a beautiful glossy green. You can see my lighter color leaves, that is my new growth, and my darker are my older leaves on it. Stellar Ruby is fun because it's also known as a banana shrub, because in early spring it will put on these ruby colored flowers that smell like a ripe banana. It is the coolest plant. It does really well here. This is on drip irrigation, so I'm going to tell you if it's on drip or if it's not on drip. Literally the only thing I have done to this plant is this past spring I came in and I did start to limit up down here at the bottom. just so that I could maintain it. And if I want to start to kind of, as it grows, to kind of keep it limbed up, I certainly can do that. But Stella Ruby is a fun one, an evergreen tree that will give you flowers in the spring and then sporadically through the summer. Here in the South, we are known for some pine trees, right? It is infamous with the South and pine trees. This is a type of pine. This is a Thunderhead Japanese black pine. It is going to be hardy in zones 5 to 10, and it is such a fun tree. This is what I call like a Dr. Seuss type tree. The Thunderhead is going to be a more compact Japanese black pine, and it's going to be wider than it is tall. It is going to be about 10 feet tall and 15 feet wide. It is so cool because it has such a nice, fun, free-form shape to it. It is kind of, you know, that irregular shape, just kind of funky, has all sorts of fun things going on with it. It has, the needles go all the way down to the ground. We have had multiple birds come in and put nest in this tree because it is a great protection for those nesting birds and to raise their babies. But this is going to be full to part sun. Again, this one is in full hot afternoon sun. Right now it's kind of early in the morning, so it is in the shade, but it does get intense hot afternoon sun. It is on drip irrigation as well. But our drip in this berm, so with the Stella Ruby, the Thunderhead, and other trees that I'm going to show you, we only run this irrigation about once a week for 45 minutes. In the heat with no rain, maybe I'll run it twice a week, but it certainly does not run every day. Your Thunderhead is really cool because in coming out of winter into spring, it will do these gorgeous silver, what we call candles. And when a pine tree candles, it is like for this spring, it was this part right here. It is the new growth. So these needles are not here at that point, but it's like this really yellow, silvery looking. So it looks like elongated candles coming off the tree. That is all your new growth. So this whole section right here was new growth from this year, right? So all of these nice tall spikes right here, that is new growth. And again, continuing with more new growth right here. So this is, I would say, a relatively fast growing. Pines tend to be, you know, they're not very slow growers, so that's a good thing if you're looking for interest. This is what I would consider a specimen tree, so it does come typically with a little bit of a heftier price tag, maybe a little bit harder for you to find than some of the other trees that we are looking at. But I had been turned on for the Thunderhead by a sweet garden friend of mine, and then once I began investigating it and saw how hardy it was for us, I mean zones 5 to 10, I'm a zone 8, it's like perfect. I wanted it, we were able to locate it, and so we are so glad that we did because it has had zero issues, like no problems whatsoever. You don't prune it, you want it to keep that free-form shape. There's no bugs that like it. The birds are attracted to it, like I said, to nest in it. So Thunderhead, a very cool specimen evergreen tree you might want to add to your garden. Here at the, what I call like the base of the berm, closest to the nursery, closest to the creek, I have two more evergreen trees that I want to share with you. One is on each side. The one that you see behind me, that is a golden Oakland holly. Love this plant. It too is from our friends at Southern Living Plant Collection, and it is a really neat, distinctive evergreen Oakland, like I said, that golden Oakland holly that just gives me beautiful chartreuse color. So we were talking about sometimes trees with chartreuse color can be a little hard in the heat and the humidity of the South. The golden Oakland holly handles it quite well. You can see that here it is already in the sun. It will continue to be in the sun till about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I would say. But it has that really distinct oak leaf shape of a holly on it, leaf on it rather. So that distinct leaf shape is what it gives that Oakland holly, because we do have Oakland hollies that I'm going to share with you, but this is the golden one, right? So it has that beautiful chartreuse color. This is going to be in full sun to part shade, hardy in zones 6 to 9. Now this baby is going to get some height to it. 15 to 20 feet high, 12 to 15 wide. And you can see that that is why I have given it plenty of room right here. Right, I want it to get that tall. I want it to get that massive because I want it to fill in this entire space. Here at the bottom of the berm, this is the perfect specimen plant. We talk about here at the berm where we have distinct beds and distinct sections of the garden. However, the entire berm works together as one flower bed. Why am I saying this? Because behind them, I have the North Pole Arborvitaes. We're going to talk about those in just a second. But these two will play off really well with each other. They're both evergreen. And imagine this golden Oakland, 15 to 20 tall, 12 feet wide, and you've got that gorgeous, different texture of an evergreen tree behind it. Oh my gosh, it is going to be spectacular. You don't need to prune this. Maybe if any time you wanted to prune it would be as if you got like a rogue limb that was just maybe coming up a little bit too much and you just wanted to kind of, you know, nip it off a little bit, then that is fine. If you see those brown tips, those reddish tips, that is not burn, that is new growth. So we've got that kind of that maroon colored tips to them in different areas. That is all new growth. It is not a burn. And so don't be worried about your golden Oaklands burning in the sun. Nope, they eat up the sun here in North Carolina. Speaking of the North Poles, these are North Pole Arborvitaes. And the North Poles, again, full sun to part shade, are a beautiful, really nice, deep, rich green of a evergreen tree. Of course, it is that Arborvitae that we know and love. They do really well here in the South. This is going to be hardy in zones 3 to 8. Now, this is an example. I am an 8A, and these guys are doing great. I mean, my gosh, they have grown feet since we put them in about almost 2 years ago. It has not even been 2 years. They've probably grown 2 to 3 feet since we put them in. They will be 10 to 15 feet tall and 3 to 5 feet wide. You can see here what we did is what I call window pane them. That means that we have a double row, right? So you've got 2 rows and you've got 4 trees on the back and you've got 3 trees on the front. This is an example of planting these evergreens as for privacy because our house, right? You can see the house back there. When we're sitting on the front porch, this would be the main view to the garden center. And so by putting the trees here in a double row window paned, letting them grow, I think we spaced these 4 feet apart from each other. Might be able to see it a little bit better actually from the other side because of the way the sun is. They will grow together as a hedge. Even if they're not completely touching, that's totally fine because they're window paned and they can fill in and give us some privacy from the nursery to the house. But just a nice, great tree. The Japanese beetles don't like it. I've not had any problems with bagworms. Bagworms sometimes can be a problem with your evergreen trees. Not these guys. Again, they are on drip irrigation because the berm does have irrigation. But again, at the most, in the heat of the summer, twice a week, good deep watering, and then that is it. In the springtime, I did go ahead and fertilize them with hollytone. I've done it once, and I think, well, once this season for sure, maybe twice total since they've been in, and they are doing phenomenal. So if you're looking for a privacy screen, but a tree that's not too large, right? Because I've got some to show you that are huge, that are massive. This might be a more manageable size, right? That 10 to 15 feet tall, 3 to 5 wide, not massive, but definitely gives you that nice screen, that privacy that maybe that you need in your house. Now, speaking of massive trees to provide privacy, I've got 2 great examples. Let's go show you. All right, my friends, let's say that you do need some privacy screening in your yard, on your property, but you need to go big, right? Go big or go home. Well, that is what Jerry and I did before we even built our house. So they had begun construction on our house. This would have been 21 years ago when we planted these Cryptomerias. Cryptomerias are that solid green hedge that you see from here all the way down. These are Cryptomeria Yoshinos, and they will get 30 to 40 feet tall, and you can see they are every bit of 30 to 40 feet tall. These are going to be hardy in zones 6 to 9, and the spacing, like if you were just to plant like as a specimen tree, just one of them, they could get to be about 15 feet wide. However, when you're wanting to plant them as a privacy screen like we did, you're going to space them about 5 to 6 feet apart, and that is what we did. We planted these here because our property line is just directly behind these trees. And so when we built our house basically at the far back end of on our property. And so the property line is kind of weird because it's really close right here, and then it what we call dog legs, right? It shoots off in the other direction. And you just never know, right? There's nothing but farmland back there, has for years, and like has always been either forest or farmland back there, but you just never know what may happen. So we were trying to be a little proactive 21 years ago and planted these Cryptomerias here. Now, they are a fast growing tree. I mean, think about it, in 21 years, and I know 21 years certainly does sound like a long time, but in 21 years, they went from, I mean, my gosh, they were maybe, I think they were probably 3 gallons when we planted them. They certainly weren't 15 gallons. We were building a house, we had no money. And so they were, you know, we did a double row on them. They are not on irrigation. So this is just totally from rainwater, what the good Lord gives us. There is no irrigation back here. And I think maybe the first 2 years, Jerry did come through and he cut the tops out of them, trying to make them nice and thicker and more full. And it certainly worked. This is such a fun tree to use. I use it all the time and every winter around Christmas time because of the really cool foliage on it. I've certainly got plenty of tree here that I can cut. And so they just have these beautiful long needles on them. They're soft, they're not pokey at all. They're not like a cedar or a juniper, and so they're very soft, have fun free form on them. I can just come in here and cut, you know, some limbs off of them, stick them in either containers or my hay racks to give me a nice winter interest in those containers. So if you were looking for a big screen that's a fast grower, check out the Cryptomeria, and this is that Yoshino variety. A few years ago, Jerry and I realized that, you know what, we probably really should have just extended like the Cryptomerias all the way down when we originally planted them, but we just didn't think about it. So we came back through and planted 2 more sets of trees. I'm going to talk about the Thuja green giants, which are these guys right here, in a minute, because I've got mature specimens that I'm going to show you. But what we did plant were some Berkeys, and Berkeys are an eastern red cedar. It is a native plant, and y'all, if you followed us, you know that there was another one that was right here, and it was crooked for forever and ever, amen, and we finally ripped it out right before the signature experience. Now, the reason that I'm sharing the Berkeys with you is because they are a native tree. They have kind of a bluish green foliage to them. These are doing okay. They do like more moist soils, and this is not on irrigation, so you might be able to see one. I've got some little maple trees growing up in here. I know, yeah, it is what it is. But with the heat that we've been experiencing and these not being on irrigation, they are a little thin inside. What we can do to help remedy that is, of course, you want to maybe fertilize them and then come in and add a nice thick layer of compost or mulch right here. But the Berkeys are so cool because they will get about 15 to 20 feet tall, 12 to 15 wide, I believe it is. Very hardy. They are a cedar, so they are a little bit more abrasive maybe in their texture and how they feel against, you know, as opposed to like those Cryptomerias that were nice and soft. They're hardy in zones 3 to 9, and they will produce little berries. In fact, you can start to see, maybe, I don't know if the camera will pick it up, but there are some little berries that are starting to form. So it's a really nice winter interest, and then of course the birds love them. So we thought this would be a really neat tree to add, and it was, and we love it. But yeah, they are struggling a little bit, and I do think it's because probably they're not getting that consistent water. Also, we did a video when we planted these, and we got these from it was actually my uncle's nursery in South Carolina, and he grows field-grown trees. So we bought these trees. They were field grown, so that means they were B&B, the ball and burlap. They were massive, huge, which is what we wanted, but we didn't fully realize that our equipment at the time was not strong enough to properly plant these. We borrowed a friend's tractor and auger. He had the biggest auger that we could find, and it was really, really hard to properly set these trees, because them being a B&B, which means native soil, they're heavier than a potted plant, and it was a struggle to get them deep enough and to get them straight because of their size, and we did not have the proper equipment at the time to do it. Now with our equipment we could do it, but at that time it was quite challenging. And so that is something to think about when you're looking at trees and you're talking to your nursery. Is this a container plant, or is this a B&B? If it's a B&B and it's bigger than a couple of feet, you're probably going to have to hire somebody to install it, because they are incredibly heavy and they can be quite challenging to install. A container plant, you can easily plant a 15-gallon, because yes, with a shovel it's going to take you some time, but it's doable. You can do it. Even dare say maybe a 30-gallon, if you're in good shape and you feel like digging a big hole, maybe you could even do a 30-gallon. But when doing a B&B, if it's big, you're going to have to hire somebody unless you have the equipment at home. So Berkeys are fun, a different color, a different texture to them. Ours are just a little struggling. They need some TLC. When I say we planted them and literally forgot about them, we did. And it kind of shows. But there you go. You got the Berkeys. Next to the Cryptomerias, the Thuja green giants are probably the most requested tree for us to talk about. Thuja green giants are known for their rapid growth. They are huge, 40 to 60 feet tall. 12 to 15 feet wide at the base, and they will get every bit of 12 to 15 feet wide, if not even bigger where we are. Hardy in zones 5 to 8. This is a fantastic tree. There are 3 of them here that give us just gorgeous evergreen color year round, right? I mean, hello, evergreen, kind of self-explanatory. The reason that we planted these here was because, if you remember, we had that tractor shed on the back side of them, and we wanted to hide that. So there's only 3 of these here. These 3 emerald greens they're lovely and they are beautiful. Again, full sun. They are not on irrigation. They are on a slope. They are very close right to the chicken coop, just down the slope from the chicken coop. But again, beautiful foliage on it. They have nice flat, I'm gonna call them leaves, but like how they extend out, they're nice and flat, beautiful, bright green color. Japanese beetle leaves them alone, bagworms leave them alone, and they really are doing great. So this is a great, fast growing tree that you can put here. The age on these, you know, I try to, as a mom, you kind of remember things as like how your kids, so we built the tractor shed when I was pregnant with Megan. Megan is 16 years old. It would have been, you know, well after we planted these, after the tractor shed would have been built, when the cottage garden was before that, which is 6 years old. So I'm gonna say somewhere around that 12 to 14 years old. That's how long they have been in the ground. We planted them, it would have been either a 7-gallon or a 15-gallon. I honestly don't remember. I was in the throes of being a young mama with little tiny babies. I don't remember what size they were, but those 3. Now, in front of them, these are not trees, but these are loropetalums, and these are massive loropetalums. The good thing, bad thing is they are an evergreen shrub. They are not a tree. They bring a different color and texture to this space, but both the loropetalums and the trees have gotten much larger than what we anticipated. And quote, the problem with that is that if you can see, the trees and the loropetalums are growing together, which is not a bad thing as long as the loropetalums stay alive. Because if we were to take out these 2 loropetalums right here, I would have a big gaping hole in this tree. So that is something that we have to be concerned about with the garden renovations here at the in this whole area. We perhaps might take out this loropetalum just because I think we would be okay here with the tree, that it's not going to be too holy per se, but, you know, if we were to take out that loropetalum, and then we have our giant fig tree back there that would also kind of help fill in the gap. But another great, very fast growing, large tree. There's 3 of them there, y'all, and they are every bit of 15 feet wide. It was a couple of years ago, and we measured the base of them, measured just one base. It was every bit of 15 feet. We planted these are probably, I would say, 7 feet apart from each other. 7 to 8 feet apart on center, so that way it gives you that nice solid screen. And there you go. Another great, fast-growing, large, evergreen tree for privacy. Where I showed you the golden Oakland holly, this is just a traditional Oakland holly. Nice dark green glossy leaves, still has almost the exact same leaf shape, that classic kind of an oak leaf shape to it, but it's just a nice dark glossy green. And so this is again a great one for privacy. Hardy in zones 6 to 9, 15 to 20 tall, 12 feet wide. We planted them here. We have 5 of them in this space because we do have those 3 teenagers, and we have cars, and the garage can only hold so many cars and vehicles, and we have equipment and so forth. So right behind here is where we have like a little parking lot for various equipment. And we planted these Oakland hollies underneath this native maple tree to give us that privacy and to kind of hide the cars. Not that, it's just for our viewpoint, right? We just kind of wanted to hide the cars so that we're not looking at all of the cars. So here you go. They do in the spring little white flowers like most hollies do, and y'all, I have never seen so many pollinators all over these trees. I mean, like covering them, and they were just loving life with these Oakland hollies. They, again, this is not on irrigation, so you can kind of get an idea. But again, when we planted them, these may have been 15 gallons. Hollies tend to be, I think, maybe a little bit slower grower because I want them to get nice and thick and to fill in. This one is doing great. It's more at the bottom of the hill, so it probably just gets more water naturally. And yeah, so it's nice and thick. Have not pruned it at all. You'll get little tops. If you get somebody that's really kind of a rogue and is going too high, just snip it off. It's not a problem. It'll just kind of help the plant get nice and thick. And then, if I'm not mistaken, I think they did the red berries. I know they were covered in flowers, and I think they go to red berries. I could be wrong. Anyway, a great Oakland holly. If you're going to plant it near your house, please give it plenty of room. Do not plant any of these plants too close to your house. Give them lots of room to breathe. Give them that plenty of room to get nice and mature and very happy, and they're not crowding your house. Now, I've got 2 more that I'm going to show you. One of my favorite evergreen trees on our property is the dwarf blue Atlas cedar. This is a Hortsman, and the Hortsman is more of a dwarf variety. So when I say dwarf, it still gets 8 to 10 feet tall, 5 to 6 feet wide, but it's not going to be, when you're talking trees, 8 8 feet tall is kind of dwarf compared to, you know, 40, 60 feet tall. And we have this planted on the corner of our house, right off of the front porch. It is such a fun, irregular, definitely what I call a Dr. Seuss tree. Has that blue-green foliage to it, and y'all, it loves this spot. It is such a happy tree. Again, not on irrigation, so it is just living its best life here and doing quite lovely. Now, you can see that it has very, very short needles on it, right? So it doesn't have the long needles like the Cryptomeria has. Very different texture to it, very open. Like I said, very much a Dr. Seuss. If you can see the different color in the foliage, so obviously here on the tip, that nice lighter, I don't even know, just it's a lighter color. That is all your new growth. As we go down deeper in, that really rich silvery blue, that is your older foliage. This is doing great. Not on irrigation. I do not water this bed at all. When I have my annuals in here, when I first plant the annuals, I'll give them, you know, some drink of water to get them going. But other than that, they're completely on their own. Now, something interesting about the Hortsman is that, one, I've only pruned it one time. You were with me when we were planting the begonias in here, and I literally just went in to the very, very bottom of the tree and cut off some of the branches. Some of those branches were literally just laying on the ground, and I wanted to open it up just a little bit so that we could get those begonias kind of tucked up underneath the tree. So I've never pruned it other than that. And then it would be, I guess, 2 years ago, coming this winter, right before Christmas, we had the Arctic blast storm that came through, where we had sustained high, dry, cold winds. Like, it was like the wind gusts were insane. And because our winters are wet, the ground was wet, and those sustained winds that came from the north and they hit the front of the house, they kind of got the Hortsman a little crooked, and life happened, and we never came back out and restaked it to straighten it up. But he does not care. It does not care at all. I'm not sure if the camera will pick it up, but here is the base of the trunk, and then it kind of goes this way, right? So that's the main trunk. But what the tree has done is completely filled in right here, and it is supposed to have a very irregular shape to it, and it has filled in, and it is not wobbly. It is doing quite nicely right here. And so there you go. We are leaving it alone. Love, love this Hortsman Blue Atlas cedar. Behind it, last but not least, is my tea olives. Now, technically, this could go either way. Your sweet osmanthus, these guys right here, beautiful glossy evergreen foliage on them. You could either consider this a shrub or you consider it a tree. It really kind of depends. There's that plant that kind of goes either way, a little bit like the stellar ruby magnolia, right? But I wanted to share this with you because these are, oh my gosh, y'all. These are from my southern gardeners. They're hardy in zones like 7, you gotta be careful with 7, and then warmer. But sweet osmanthus come in there's a lot of different cultivars out there. These do not have the leaves like a holly tree. Some osmanthus do, where they're a little bit more prickly. These are a lot more smooth. So you can see like this leaf, the edge is quite smooth. It's interesting. This one right here is a little bit more, has a little bit more of a jagged edge to it. So depending on the variety of your sweet osmanthus will give you the different shape of the leaf. Now, what is such a great thing, well, probably my favorite thing about the tea olives, and it depends on where you live, right? What region you live. You can call them tea olives, you can call them sweet olives, you can just call them sweet osmanthus, right? Because that's what it is. But in the fall, winter, early spring, they put on little tiny flowers that had the most heavenly, intoxicating fragrance that I absolutely adore. It is this heavy perfume. The leaves, I mean the flowers to look at, not so spectacular because they're so tiny and they're in clusters. You will smell this plant before you ever see the flowers on it. I will never forget the very first time I was ever exposed to a tea olive. We were at Clemson. You know, we're big Clemson fans. We had gone to a football game. It was the game ended at night, and we were walking through the campus to go to our car. It is dark, and if you've ever left a college football game at night with small children, you're very much like very focused, and you're like, get me to the car, I need to get out of here and put these babies to bed. And that was kind of my mentality. And we're walking through campus, and all of a sudden I'm like, what is that fragrance? Like, what is that? And I look down, and the whole sidewalk, driveway, wherever we were, was completely covered in white. And I look up, and there's this massive wall of these shrubs covered in the white flowers. Turns out it was these sweet olives. Gorgeous, fast growing. You can prune them, you can shape them. I prune them once a year. That is in early spring going into summer. They bloom on old growth. So I would be leery, like right this very second would be the absolute last that I would prune them, so that you make sure that you get flowers. If even I may not even prune them like right now, but that would be the time to prune them, is out of winter going into spring, and just great. You're gonna wanna put them somewhere that you can smell them. That is why they are right here by our front porch. Absolutely love these plants and have them in a couple of different areas here in the garden. Now, I thought I was done, but I see one more plant, one more tree I have to share with you because she is such a cutie. I'm not sure how I could forget about my little Hanoi Slender. The Hanoi Slender, again, a little bit of that Dr. Seuss tree look to it. Such a sweet, love this tree, y'all. It is such a cool tree. It is a great specimen plant. We have it obviously here in the backyard. Nice, again, completely different color, texture than any of my other evergreens. It is that cypress. It is hardy in zones 4 to 8. I believe that was right. And it is going to be about 12 feet tall and then about 4 to 5 feet wide at the base. And you can see that here at the base it's nice and wide here at the base, and then it kind of just goes in and it's skinny, and then it's, you know, it's funky and it has a little flip on it. So it definitely has that unique texture to it, that unique shape, makes it a great specimen plant. In fact, y'all will understand this as gardeners. I don't know, it was like a year ago, and I think it was Emily, our oldest one. She was like, Mama, that little flip up there, that thing's driving me crazy. I'm gonna go cut that off. And I was like, don't you dare, I will hurt you. And so obviously she didn't, but that's what it does. It's just that cool little flip up there at the top. Nice, it is a slow grower. This one is on irrigation. In this flower bed, it does receive that irrigation, but it is just a cool specimen plant to have in the garden. Just lovely and really neat interest, and then it just ties this whole area in together. Now next year when we plant our annuals, I will not plant like the Nemesia, got way too close. I'm not being able to see my tree, and I don't like that. So next year I will, you know, change accordingly, give this baby some more room. These flower beds are going to get kind of redone because I don't like the design on some of my plants that I put in here, like the locations. So I'm gonna tweak it a little bit, but there you go. Again, reason we're doing this is to kind of get you to start thinking about the fall. In the South, it is a perfect time to plant your trees. It is a great time. Now, you can plant trees now, you can. It's just gonna require a lot of work on you to make sure that they get plenty of water and that they get acclimated okay. It's gonna be a stressful time for the plant to add. It's gonna be a stressful time for you to plant. If I had to choose where I am in North Carolina, I would want to start planting my trees anywhere from like October all the way like through January, February, right? Because it is cooler, we get more consistent rain, your roots can get established. That's what we're focused about here in the South, is making sure the plant and the roots are well established before the heat that we have right now hits, because the heat and the humidity is not something to be messed with, and it's a little stressful for everybody, gardeners and plants included. I hope you have found this fun. I hope you have found it informative. Maybe you've learned of a new tree that you want to add to your garden. That evergreen interest is so important because you get year-round interest, right? And so that is what we want in a really well-balanced garden, is that you have interest year-round. You've got those, these are the bones of your garden, as we call them, because they're always there. That green structure is always there. Maybe they flower, maybe they don't, but that plant is there and is a solid, stable bone in your garden. And then we can add in our other shrubs, our other maybe deciduous trees, perennials and annuals around that to make a well-balanced garden. We appreciate you. Hope y'all have had fun. We'll see you in the next video. Bye, friends.